Imagine coming home to one of those small irritations, maybe one of your pet peeves, like someone left dirty dishes in the sink. You're annoyed, but it's not the end of the world. You do the dishes and you move on with your day. The next day, it is something else. Maybe this time it is wet towels on the floor. Again, you're annoyed. You don't say anything. You put the towels in the washer and you move on. Over the days, a few more little things like this happen. You continue not saying anything, but the emotional pressure is building. And eventually, some tiny thing is the straw that breaks the camel's back, and you have a massive emotional explosion. It's completely out of proportion with whatever seems like triggered it, and there's collateral damage. Maybe you said something horrible to someone you love, threw something in a rage, or even made a scene in public. Now your emotions have reset, the pressure is released, you're no longer explosive or mad about the things that triggered the explosion, but you do have a shame hangover, and now you have to clean up the mess that you made. If you resonated with the story, or it reminded you of someone specific, there is a chance that either you or them have the tribal emotional wave in your human design chart. In today's episode, I'm going over this wave, including the 2 channels and 4 gates that form this wave, how this can show up in your business and in your relationships, and how to navigate this wave, whether you have it defined in your own chart or whether you're dealing with a friend, a loved one, or a colleague that has this wave. Understanding how this works, either in yourself or in others, is an important element of emotional intelligence that can have a massive impact on your relationships, both personal and professional. Welcome to Heart-Centered Human Design, Emotional Intelligence and Conscious Business, the show for heart-centered entrepreneurs that want meaningful success and work-life balance so they can wake up every day feeling inspired, empowered, and supported by work and life. I'm your host, Vanessa Naja, human design mentor and business coach, and I love sharing this incredible system with you that will help you build a life and business that you love. At the end of the episode, if you want to dive deeper on how to make the most of your emotional intelligence through the lens of human design to build a life and business that you love, I'll let you know how you can do that through our work together. This episode is going to build on some of the previous episodes. If you are brand new to human design, it's a great idea to get an overview of the emotional system. And I've done a lot of previous episodes about this subject already. You may want to check out season 1, episode 11 and episode 22. And then I'm covering all of the emotional waves in depth in season 2, the season we're in right now. You can start with episode 17 and 18. We are now on episode 19, and there will be 2 more follow-up episodes specifically on the emotional waves in human design, in business, and your relationships. Now, just a quick reminder, we are all going to be dealing with these emotional waves at some point in our lives. If you have this wave defined in your chart, this is going to be a consistent experience for you. And that story I told at the beginning probably sounded a little too close for comfort because it's your story. If you do not have this wave defined, you are dealing with this from the people around you that do have this wave defined. And it's also possible that you are creating this wave with somebody else. If you have one of the gates defined that create this wave, and I will talk about those 4 gates, you are going to be attracting people that have the other end of the channel, that have the other gate. And when you're together, you create this wave. You can also easily experience this wave through planetary transits. So this affects every single one of us, whether you have this wave defined or not. If you have a defined emotional solar plexus, like 53% of the population, then you have at least one of the emotional waves that I'm covering in this series. You may have more than one. If you do not have a defined solar plexus, you are going to be amplifying these waves from other people. And if you look at your human design chart, the triangle on the right side of the chart pointing left is the solar plexus. If it's colored in your chart, it's defined. If it is white, it is undefined. I will also, if you're watching this online, I will have images of this so you have a better understanding of what this looks like. The tribal emotional wave. You have this wave if you have either channel 3740, which runs from the solar plexus to the ego or willpower center, which is that teeny little triangle, the smallest one in the chart. It's a little bit off towards the right side, more towards the middle of the chart. Or if you have channel 1949, which runs from the root center, the square at the very bottom of the chart, to the solar plexus. Either one of these channels, this is the tribal wave. If you have this defined in your chart, you have this wave. The tribal wave is emotional energy that is all about the people that you are close to, your tribe, your loved ones, your family, your community, people that you spend a lot of time with. Oftentimes, this can be your colleagues and business partners. This wave is based on bargains, deals, fairness, needs, and sensitivity, and I'll go deeper into this in the episode. Now, the thing with this wave, it might feel pretty calm until something happens in your relationships. And remember, this could be little things like the beginning of the story, these teeny little irritations that build up over time. And what happens with this wave, it slowly builds up pressure. It ratchets up. Every time one of those little things happens, more pressure is added to this wave until eventually it just explodes and resets. And the explosion can be absolutely massive. And if you're not careful, there can be collateral damage. Now, the person that has the tribal wave, usually when they reset, they feel fine. They no longer care about all of the little things that cause the wave to explode. Everything is okay in their world. But the people they exploded on, they are not going to feel so good. The explosions of the tribal wave can have really serious consequences. It can end relationships. It can end business deals. It can create consequences that will haunt you for years to come, and there can be massive shame hangovers. So it's really important to understand how to navigate this wave if this is your emotional wave. If you have a loved one, a colleague, somebody you work with regularly that has this wave, you do also want to understand how it works. And it's important to note that this is not personal. So you are not causing this wave. You can't necessarily do anything about it. And the explosions that go with it may feel really personal, but they're not. And I know that's easy to say, and I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying you should take any kind of abuse from somebody else or somebody that might have this wave. But it's helpful to understand if you have a child, if you have a loved one that has this wave and they have these massive explosions, you will learn in this episode how you can help calm this for them. There are two channels that make up this wave. The first one is channel 3740, goes from the ego or will center to the solar plexus, and this is the channel of community. This channel is very much about bargains, deals, and partnerships in business and in relationships. This is actually where the marriage contract lives. This is about finding the right allies in your personal and professional relationships and people you can create community with. It's about keeping commitments. Loyalty is really important to people that have this wave, and also about transcending the differences that we have so the deals can get done. Now, this does blend the emotions of the solar plexus with the abundance and resources of the willpower or the ego center. So there's a big connection to the agreements that we make. If I do this for you, you did this for me. And this can show up in so many different ways. This can be if I cook dinner, you're going to do the dishes. It can be in business agreements. If you provide the service for me, I am going to pay you this money. It's important to continue to verbalize and make sure that everybody is clear on what those agreements are, because broken promises are extremely hard for people that have this wave and specifically this channel, and those broken promises can really trigger that wave, which then can potentially break the bonds and break up the relationship. And when people have this in a relationship, whether one of the partners have it or you create it in an electromagnetic, meaning one person has one gate, the other person has the other gate, when this bond comes apart, it is incredibly, incredibly painful. The most important thing to really pay attention to are the agreements and the bargains that you make, making sure you're entering into the correct agreements. And remember, we're not just talking business agreements. We're talking about the little things like, hey, if I'm the person that cleans the bathroom every week, you're going to be the one cleaning the kitchen. And then making sure that you do stick to those bargains. Now, the two gates that make up this wave are gate 37, which is it's about family and community. It's very sweet and affectionate energy. It's emotional energy. It sits on the solar plexus. It's very responsive to touch, and it distributes the goods. And the goods are provided by gate 40, the other half of this wave. So gate 40 is very much about doing work to provide the resources that the community needs, and then balancing that work with rest and alone time. You can think of gate 37 as the one that distributes to the community what gate 40 provides. And there's an agreement between the two, is that gate 40 does the work it provides, and then it gets to rest while gate 37 provides for the community. So you can think of gate 40 as a breadwinner. This might be the person that's going out and doing the work and bringing home the money. And then gate 37 is the one that is using that money to buy the food, cook the meals, and all of that good stuff. It's really important for gate 40, if you have this defined in your chart, whether you have the whole wave or not, that you make sure you get adequate rest and alone time, because gate 40 is one of the alone gates. It needs time completely alone in order to rest and replenish. And if it does not have that time and it does not have that balance between work and rest, this can really amp up the emotional wave. Workaholism is a potential in this particular gate. Being aware of that potential of overworking and not taking enough rest is really important, because you do really need that rest in order to not overly trigger the explosions that come with this wave. Now, remember, this wave is very much about agreements and contracts, and there can be expectations that agreements or commitments were made even though they were not communicated. Communication is such an important aspect of this channel, because it can happen that you may think you agreed upon something with your partner, but you didn't actually talk about it. So your partner, this may be a business partner or a romantic partner, has absolutely no idea, and then they do something and you think they broke an agreement that never actually existed. So communication, continue to agree upon whatever this bargain is that you guys are making, and making sure that it's constantly up to date. Because when expectations are broken here, or it feels like there's some sort of disloyalty or somebody's not sticking to an agreement and that agreement was never actually made verbally, this can be a big sticking point with this wave. Now, touch can also be very calming to this wave and can help release tension, so that the wave doesn't get to the point of explosion. Anybody that has a lot of tribal energy in their chart, they are going to probably be more affectionate people. Physical touch is likely going to be one of their important love languages. This can be a hug, a comforting hand on the shoulder, whatever that may be, can be really calming to this wave. When it comes to business, this is part of the ego circuit, which is a big part of business, because having contracts and agreements that are fair to all parties involved is really important to doing business in an effective way. The contracts have to be fair to all parties. It's important that they're in writing so they can always be referred back to if necessary. Communicating clearly about needs, expectations, and bargains with your colleagues, with your business partners, with your suppliers is essential to keep things running smoothly. And if something does come up, you want to communicate about it right away. Don't assume that the other party knows or is doing something on purpose to piss you off. Make sure to keep the communication open, because whatever is bothering you could actually be really innocent when it comes to the other party. Now, a big important aspect about the tribal wave is knowing how to anticipate the explosion. If you have this wave, and I actually have this particular one, I have channel 3740, you probably have a good experience when you look back on your life about these explosions coming on. You want to learn to anticipate them. You're still going to have them. This is part of your energy, and the way this wave works is just part of how you express yourself. So this isn't about making sure an explosion never happens or just like suppressing your emotions. Actually, quite the opposite. You want to make sure you're feeling and expressing your emotions, but that you're doing it in a constructive way. And what I have found works for me is I can tell when an explosion is coming. I track my wave. I can kind of see those little things. I do my best to communicate. And when an explosion comes, I have it on my own. I allow myself to have it. I don't suppress it. And maybe sometimes that looks like screaming into a pillow or stomping my feet or just having a big crying fit, because The explosion is what releases the pressure. So having the explosion is okay, but you want to make sure you're not having it around other people or that you're creating collateral damage. You don't want to be exploding on others. You don't want to be saying terrible things. You want to know that you're having the explosion, not question yourself or make yourself wrong for it, because that's just going to make it worse and it's going to make it last longer. But just allow yourself to express those emotions in whatever way feels beneficial to you. I've also found that moving my body, dancing, exercising can be a really great way to release the pressure of this wave. The other channel that forms a tribal wave is channel 1949, the channel of synthesis that runs from the root center to the solar plexus. And this channel is about bringing everyone together for the common good of the community. There's this understanding and this sensitivity to what needs to be provided for the stability and well-being of the community. And that could be your family, your team, your partnership, your business colleagues, whatever that community is. There's a lot of sensitivity in this channel, and we'll go more into that when we get to gate 19. It can also be very insensitive depending on where they are on their wave. So there's a big element here of balancing out your own needs with the needs of others while also sticking to your own principles. Being able in the high expression of this to balance practicality and fairness is essential. And there's also an element of wanting to be needed, needing to be wanted, and being able to give support. That is absolutely essential to your happiness if you have channel 1949. This channel is very much about courtship. So where channel 3740 was about the marriage contract, channel 1949 is about the courtship and the bonding and intimacy that's created before you enter into those contracts. It's important to really take time to enter into relationships. Really, for anybody, it's important to take your time. But with this wave, you want to be extra careful about taking your time entering into relationships. Now, there is a potential here for coming across as clingy. There's a lot of need in the gate 19, and there's also a potential for codependence. So you do want to be really aware of this. Principles also come into play here. And if someone does not adhere to the principles or rules, because remember, the tribal wave is about agreements, this bond can break apart and even a revolution can occur. The potential here is to quit too soon. Something's not going your way. You can just create a revolution and quit too soon. You could also, if you have this wave, stay too long. So it's important to be aware of your needs and how your needs are being met by your loved ones, and making sure that you're also meeting your own needs and not too busy taking care of everybody else. When the wave crashes, and remember, the wave will crash, it's part of how the energy is released, you want to be careful about not starting a whole revolution. So you really want to be present to what is going on, allow yourself to have the wave crash, ideally by yourself or around somebody supportive that understands what you're going through, and not finish something that doesn't need to be finished, not to cut off something or create a revolution during this wave crash. Wave crashes and also the pressure building with this particular channel can often be around imbalances with needs not being met, or an imbalance with giving and receiving. So again, with a channel 1949, making sure that things are clearly communicated, that you're balancing giving with receiving is essential. Going into the gates of this channel, gate 19 is about the sensitivity and awareness of the needs of other people. People that have this light to ensure that needs are met, especially the basic needs of food and shelter. And again, there can be an element of codependence here. There is this really desire to be needed and to be wanted. There can be an element of clinginess here, and you want to be really careful about that. If you have gate 19, making sure that you have your own thing going on, that you are also meeting your own needs, that you have time alone, and that you don't enter into codependent relationships is really important. Gate 49 is a gate of principles. This is the emotional energy of this wave. This is the part that sits on the solar plexus. This is about the rules and values of the tribe and the partnership. This is where the revolution happens based on emotions. And it's also about the support and distribution of the food and the resources that the tribe needs. This energy, again, is revolutionary. And this is that energy. When this energy or somebody that carries this is done with somebody or something, it's done. And there is usually no going back. So you want to be really careful if you have this in your chart about not quitting too soon or saying no when it is actually something that is correct for you and that benefits you. So again, 1949 is about the early phases of entering into relationships, whether that be business or professional relationships. It's important to take time to enter into these partnerships, to be clear on the principles of the partnership. Communicating the values and the principles is essential, because when the principles or values here are perceived to be violated in some ways when the revolution starts, so not communicating can add to the ratcheting of the wave and the potential revolution that can be quite ugly when this wave explodes. So overall, it's really important to be aware of where we are on that emotional spectrum, understanding and accepting what is going on. If you have this wave yourself, the ratchets will happen, the explosions will happen. There is nothing wrong with you. Be aware of what's going on. Allow yourself to feel your feelings. Make sure you're communicating clearly with your loved ones about what the agreements are. And if someone does break an agreement, that is often when those biggest explosions happen. And this can often be because the person wasn't aware of the agreement. So that communication is essential. And remember, if you have this wave yourself, you are responsible for navigating your own emotional wave. There is no use in putting the blame on somebody else for triggering you. You just want to be aware of what's going on inside your own emotional chemistry. I always recommend tracking your wave, just noting, are you up today? Are you down today? Did something trigger you? Make sure to communicate about those things and allow yourself to feel your feelings, express your emotions in constructive ways, especially when that explosion is coming. And if you do not have this wave, if you're emotionally undefined, you are going to be amplifying this wave from other people. You want to make sure that you know what your own emotions are and what emotions you're picking up from other people, and allow other people's emotions to flow through you. You can imagine it's like an open window. The emotions come in and they just blow through. Don't hang on to them. Don't identify with them. This is just information for you. If you have an undefined solar plexus, you're meant to become incredibly wise about emotions. And by experiencing other people's emotions, this is how you become wise about them. If you want to improve your own emotional intelligence and understand how you can best use your emotional intelligence to create a business and life that you love through the lens of human design, I invite you to check out my program, Emotional Intelligence by Human Design, which you can find at vanessanaja.com/emotional intelligence. I will also link it in the show notes. And I'd love to hear what you thought of this episode. If you are somewhere where you can comment, please let me know. Do you have one of these two channels, or do you have a loved one that does? And what has your experience been with this energy? If you're not listening or watching somewhere where you can comment, please go over to Instagram at @HDVanessaNaja, send me a DM, and let me know how this landed for you. I will also be posting a carousel on Instagram that shows you where these waves are and gives you some insights and tips on how to deal with this emotional wave. Again, that's at @HDVanessaNaja. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.